A new report from Bloomberg reveals more about the close relationship between Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein. Bloomberg says it has obtained thousands of emails from a Yahoo account belonging to Epstein, which reveals some private conversations between the wealthy money manager and Maxwell, along with other associates. NBC News can't independently verify these emails. Maxwell's attorney did not respond to questions from Bloomberg about the report. But joining us now is Ankush Khardori, Politico magazine senior staff writer and former federal prosecutor. Ankush, welcome back to the show here. So President Trump's name comes up in three minor incidents, as Bloomberg has called them. One is this email, as Epstein was in negotiations ahead of the non-prosecution agreement in 2007. Maxwell saying someone may have talked to Trump. A White House spokesperson called these references to Trump fake news. But my question, who is they that Maxwell could be referring to? And do any mentions of Trump in these emails shed any new light on the president's relationship with Epstein?
Well, as someone who used to go through emails for a living as a fraud prosecutor, I'll just say that, it's hard to discern from any single email what the full context is, and it can be risky to try to assume. I think that the totality of Bloomberg's reporting suggests things that we kind of already knew, but it is helpful to have more information. One, Maxwell maintained a relationship with Epstein, and she is not someone who anybody should be relying upon, as the Department of Justice has been doing, for some sort of truthful account about what happened. The other is, and we saw this in reporting from the New York Times this week as well, that, Epstein was very well connected in political finance and even the media world, and he seems to have used that influence very effectively to protect himself.
One email, Ankush, contained a spreadsheet with gifts and payments to Epstein's associates totaling over $1 million. Why weren't these dealings not investigated earlier? There's that New York Times report this week alleging J.P. Morgan Chase may have enabled his financial dealings despite knowing he was a convicted sex offender. So how long could it take to unravel all of Epstein's finances?
Well, I would say it's unclear to me whether and to what extent the Justice Department did try to look at any of this in connection with their investigation. Something like this would be extremely difficult to unravel, particularly at this late date, particularly with Epstein having passed and Maxwell not being a viable cooperator. Because it's one thing for J.P. Morgan to have done a very bad job at vetting its clients and making sure that someone as awful as Jeffrey Epstein was not someone who they were serving. It's another thing for them to have knowingly facilitated that criminal conduct. And for that threshold to be crossed, you would need to conduct a pretty robust and complex criminal investigation. And I find it hard to believe that that is going to happen under this Justice Department.
So a bipartisan discharge petition, as you know, it's pretty close to a vote in the House, compelling the DOJ to release the Epstein files in full, with some exceptions for privacy or perhaps national security. DOJ has been reluctant to hand over the files until now. Will they be forced to do it if this vote passes? Can DOJ refuse?
Well, it remains to be seen how far this bill will actually get. Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie maintain that they're confident that they will eventually get the numbers they need to get. Then we'll see what happens in the House. But then you have to go to the Senate, and then the bill has to be either signed into law by the president or passed by a veto-proof majority for it to actually bind the president. So those are a lot of hurdles to cross. And then at the end of the day, would this Justice Department comply with that law? I mean, I don't think we can count on that. On the Trump's first day in office, he announced that he was ignoring the law that Congress passed banning TikTok. So, and that sort of position that the Trump administration has taken, that it can sort of ignore and pick and choose which laws to enforce or to abide by, has been a consistent through line for the last 8 or 9 months. So unfortunately, it's sad to say, even if this law passed, I don't think we could be 100% sure that there would be full compliance by this Justice Department.
So FBI Director Kash Patel may sit with the House Oversight Committee next week to discuss the Epstein files. What might we learn from his testimony?
Well, it would be helpful, I think, for two lines of inquiry to be pursued if I were these folks. One is, can you tell us more about what the actual review was of the evidence that you conducted along with the Attorney General and these FBI agents? Who was involved? What were they looking for? What were the flags? Were there references to Trump? If so, Can we have them so that the public can see? Because half the public is very, very interested in them. And then two, I mean, let's just be frank here. I mean, Kash Patel was instrumental in spreading these conspiracy theories that are now engulfing him and this administration for the past few years. So if I were asking him some questions, I would like to honestly know how he sees this now personally. Was he wrong all those years? If so, why? Or was he misleading the public? I mean, this is a very serious matter, and this is the head of the FBI, and he's not a sort of a passive participant here. He was instrumentally involved now, both in the run-up to this and now in the disclosure or lack thereof under the administration.
Which department between FBI and DOJ would have the most critical information, or do they have all the same information?
They'll have all the same information. I mean, the FBI is the law enforcement arm. They're the information gathering arm of the Justice Department. But very few exceptions. I can't envision any here. That information is available to the prosecutors who are working these cases. What's unclear to me is if there actually are prosecutors working these cases. I'm not sure that there should be at this late point in time, but this is another thing that I think would benefit from some clarity, is what is the Justice Department doing currently, if anything, on this front, having issued the memo a few months ago that kicked all of this off and mostly gone silent on the matter ever since.